we're back, people. And today, Mike McDaniel was officially fired from the Miami Dolphins. I was pretty 50 on whether it was going to happen because it didn't happen right away. But I think now that we're here, especially with Harbaugh being fired, I don't think it's super surprising. Uh, just start off, I guess, talking about Mike. I think he actually still has a chance to succeed as a head coach in this league. Things that he needs to work on for sure. But I would not be surprised if he gets hired as a head coach. I think he will definitely have a lot of opportunities as an offensive coordinator. That's probably what's better for him right away. But like with all the head coach openings and not too many intriguing candidates out there, I wouldn't be surprised if he's got a lot of interviews coming up. We'll see what plays out. I think there's a lot of good things about Mike. I think didn't work out. Maybe a different situation will be better, but clearly I think it was probably the right move for the Dolphins in the sense that I think they needed a full reset. I think when you are going for like the half measure reset, it doesn't typically work out. So I think it is something uh, that they had to do, but I wouldn't be surprised if he goes other else and has success. Um, and yeah, he's gonna. I mean, offensive coordinator wise, he's gonna have a lot of possible opportunities, whether it's like Washington or someone mentioned the Lions in the chat. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of spots that the Bucks just opened up. That would, they would probably be all over that. But I think he'll probably get some coaching shots. And then yeah, so what's next for Miami? I'm guessing they're going to be full. There's been reports saying that they haven't contacted Harbaugh. Whether they have or haven't, that they're going to now. I expect there to be like a pretty big push on that. I also think whatever GM they hire. So there was also reports about this that the Dolphins are expected to make their decision by tomorrow, and in their second phase of GM searches, they were down to Chad Alexander from the Chargers, John Eric Sullivan from the Packers, Josh Williams from the Niners, and then Champ Kelly, who was the interim GM. Now, I think depending on who the GM ends up being will actually point towards what coach they're looking for. Like, obviously, I think if it's Chad Alexander, I think that means like they're going to be hard pushing for Harbaugh. Plus, if it's not Harbaugh, I would look at someone like Jesse Minter from the Chargers because he also has Michigan ties. Chad Alexander is coming from the Chargers. The Harbaugh brother is there, so like I think Minter would be someone that they could go for if that was the GM. If they sign the Packers guy, John Eric Sullivan, I would imagine they go after like Jeff Hatley, who's the Packers D coordinator, or something like that, or maybe even LaFleur ends up getting fired because there's still been some reports that like they could move on from LaFleur if they get bounced wild card weekend, which I would be all over LaFleur for sure. McDaniel's a millionaire; he's already fine. Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's gonna be fine. I mean, he's gonna get hired right away. There's a lot of worse options out there than McDaniel. And then I think if they hired Josh Williams, the 49ers guy, then honestly, that head coaching position can go in a lot of ways. I don't think the Dolphins is the most attractive spot in terms of like instant success for a head coach. I think if they like a GM and coach want to come here, they're going to have to be given some time because that's what I think is good. I think next year could be pretty like could be a pretty big tank year. Obviously, we'll see what they end up trying to go for in like free agency and the draft. Like that can change the minds of things, but wouldn't be surprised if next year is not pretty, especially because if you look at the roster, especially offensively and how it fits into McDaniel's scheme, like I think a lot of players become question marks now for Miami that maybe weren't in the past. Now we'll see who ends up becoming like the coordinator. Some guys could flourish, some guys could see some tough times, like guys like Aaron Brewer. Brewer was a very good scheme fit, best center in the league in this scheme, or like one of the best centers in the league in this scheme. Different scheme, you could definitely see his play take a hit. Guys like Greg Dulcich, who just had success. Depending on like, do you want to re-sign him with a new play caller? Maybe he doesn't fit. I think guys like Chan can fit in a lot of different schemes, but was really maximized in McDaniel's. That's something that I think that is probably what I have the biggest question marks is about right now is the personnel with bringing in a new coach. Like I think there's going to be a pretty big overhaul in roster. So that will be interesting because I don't know if they have the resources to do a huge overhaul this offseason, at least from a cap perspective. I think 2027 is when they can, maybe add more free agents, but the draft will be huge. It'll be such a key to this team. Like that first draft for this new GM will be absolutely huge. The Dolphins have 5 picks in the top 100. Potentially, you can add even more picks depending on how certain things play out. Maybe trade backs, all that stuff. But I think, I think Harbaugh becomes obviously the guy they're going to hard push at number one. But Harbaugh's going to have options, so it doesn't mean he's going to go to Miami. I think there's a few other guys. There's not a lot of names I'm super, super interested in. And, even Harbaugh, I think Harbaugh's a good option. I don't think he's maybe this, elite great option like some other people, but I think overall it's pretty solid. Let me see you guys say. I think Mike will do fine as an OC somewhere. I wonder how much smoke there is under the Browns are interested in McDaniel coach fire. This is offseason. So fun to watch. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are. I think he's going to at least get a few interviews as a head coach. I don't know if he will end up becoming a head coach. He'll definitely get offensive coordinator. He goes sign as an offensive coordinator right now to probably multiple different teams. Chris Shula, yeah, I think Shula should be considered. Harbaugh, I'm sure Weaver might get an interview. I don't think he should be hired as head coach though. I guess unless there's no other options, it's not, I guess, the worst thing. But there's probably a few other guys I'd go after. Yeah, potentially another third of Weaver goes to the Ravens. I guess. It scares me true. That is also possible. I think there is a possibility that they could downgrade with their next head coaching hire if they don't get a couple of those top guys. But 2 3s if Weaver goes. Yeah, it's 1-3 this year and then 1 next year. So I am kind of rooting for Weaver to get a head coach next year or a head coaching job somewhere else. Yeah. Yeah, and also like guys like Quinn Ewers, oof. I think this really Quinn Ewers might take the biggest hit from this because he was strictly Shanahan system guy, a McDaniel guy. Honestly, you know what I might try to do? I might try to if Mike McDaniel ends up on another team and they need a quarterback or a backup quarterback, try to shoot Ewers over there for some value. It'd be the best thing for Ewers' career as well. Would you trade Brewer? It really depends on who the offensive coordinator is because he can still find success in other schemes, but if they become a gap scheme or power heavy scheme, then yeah, Brewer's value is going to take a huge hit. So I mean, a trade would be on the table if I do think his play would take a huge fall off. But if not, if the Dolphins are still going to run a pretty outside zone heavy offense, which is possible, it's not just Shanahan teams that run outside zone a lot, then I think you can keep him at least for the other year. Quinn was not the guy, anyways. I don't think he was ever the guy. I just thought he would be in McDaniel's offense, could be a bridge guy or a quality backup. Right, a reason. Just can you give your thoughts on McDaniel firing? Yeah, I think overall it makes sense to do a full reset. Whether you think McDaniel was the guy or not, I think the Dolphins were just in the mode. I think they were just they had to start over. It just didn't work out. I do actually think McDaniel can still find success in this league as a head coach. I think if he ends up in the right situation, I think he definitely will find success as an offensive coordinator. He definitely wasn't perfect, but I think it's time to move on. Now, what really comes down to how I feel about the firing is who they end up getting as the head coach. If they end up with one of the top, they go after Harbaugh, or maybe they get a guy like Jesse Minter, I'd be pretty happy with that. Maybe if they hire the Packers GM or Packers got to be GM and they get Jeff Hatley, I could definitely be pretty happy. I would be pretty happy with that too. But I think if they end up with a candidate I don't like, then I think the firing would become worse in my mind. But also, if they end up with a head coach I don't like, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a one and done because I think the Dolphins are going to be in a scenario next year, if they don't end up with a solid head coach, next year could be really bad just based on roster and resources, and 2027 would be more of the turnaround year. 2026 is more for building through the draft, and you're not going to have like just instant impact from all draft players. You're going to, probably have some impact there, but overall, that's more of like the future building of your team. So my hope is they definitely get the GM right for at least the GM. I think is more important for the more immediate success of this team and like the future of this team. And then head coach obviously would be nice to get it right as well. Um, what scheme is your favorite? The most consistent offense scheme? Shanahan, Harbaugh. Well, Harbaugh. If they bring in John Harbaugh doesn't really have a scheme. It's going to be more so who his offensive coordinator is. Um, I think it just depends. I mean, I think the Shanahan scheme is one of the better ones in the league. It's had more success in a lot of schemes. A lot of the league runs it, but there is sort of a thing where like they do struggle to play from behind. So there is that kind of problem. But like if they bring in Harbaugh, like if Harbaugh is the head coach, it really matters to me who his coordinators are. Like I think that is such a huge question mark for Harbaugh. Can you share a little more in your comments about some players may suffer because of scheme change? Yeah, I think because McDaniel is from the Shanahan system, it is very scheme specific. Like guys like Aaron Brewer, I think is a great example because Brewer, even in Tennessee, where they still ran a lot of outside zone, they didn't run like a lot of his weaknesses got exposed in Tennessee, which is in pass pro. The Dolphins run a lot of play action. Everything is about timing. So and then like they do a lot of jump setting and they give the center, some help. So Brewer wasn't really exposed in pass pro in Miami because of how the scheme was ran. And then he were able to maximize his ability as a run blocker and his ability in the screen game because that was so important and getting him out in space. It was such a big thing in McDaniel's system that in a lot of other systems, they don't really ask their center to do that stuff. And then in pass pro, they might give him more responsibility or like their quarterbacks might hold on to the ball longer because it's not as timing important. So like he could be exposed more in pass pro and it could just take a hit to his game. Just even Brewer as an example. Guys like Ewers, even Tua, like when it's so all about like timing based, working off play action, they would take big hits in a different system most likely. Obviously, I'm not worried. I don't think they'd be playing anyways, but those are just examples. Guys like Achan, we've just seen how successful Achan is in the system because you're really able to maximize getting him out in space, and Achan's so good. And I think Achan's one of the guys that can still have success in other systems for sure. But I think he's also someone that it could affect him depending on who the new offensive coordinator is. I think Monken follows Harbaugh, and yeah, and I would be cool with that. Like, there's worse offensive coordinator options than Todd Monken for sure. But yeah, like even guys like some of the other offensive linemen I could see taking a hit because the Dolphins do a lot of help in pass pro. Like I think Austin Jackson is going to take a huge hit. I think they'll probably move on from Austin Jackson this offseason anyways because of the injuries, and they'll probably want to save money on his contract. I think Patrick Paul would probably be fine in a lot of other systems. He could take a little bit of a hit there, but I think he'll be fine. The guards will for sure take a hit, and they already suck. So, receivers, I think guys like Waddle can work in a lot of different systems, so I'm not super concerned about Waddle. I actually think Waddle, if he's in another system where like he gets more like one-on-one looks and more man looks, he might even find more success. He was obviously did a great, in McDaniel's system about getting like to your spots and stuff. But I don't think I would have too much concerns with him in most other systems. Oh, I mean, yeah, it's definitely leaning towards rebuild, but like there's been teams that are in a rebuild like this and turned it around fairly quickly. Like if you look at the Broncos, when Sean Payton took that job, they didn't have a QB. Their defense was just like they'd given up 70 to Miami, like, and he was there for that was like 3 games into Sean Payton's tenure, like, and they turned that around pretty quickly, and now they're like one of the top teams in the league. So things can turn around very fast. Like, I wouldn't expect next year to be the turnaround, but I think by 2027, like, if you do things the right way, like, it's not impossible to turn things around quickly. I think the Dolphins are all in on Harbaugh. Yeah, I mean that would definitely be my guess, but I think Austin Jackson most likely a goner. He is a passing coordinator at best. He has no concept of how a run game works. Who, McDaniel? I mean, McDaniel was a run game coordinator in San Francisco. And when McDaniel committed to the run, the Dolphins' run scheme is better than their pass scheme. They just didn't always commit to the run because sometimes they couldn't run block. But like, I think McDaniel's better as a run game guy than a pass game guy. Not Mike McCarthy season, please no. I would be pretty upset with a Mike McCarthy hire. I'm not gonna lie. I would assume if we hire Chad Alexander as GM, then Harbaugh is ours. Yeah, I would say if Harbaugh, and then if not Harbaugh, I would guess Jesse Minter, the Chargers D coordinator. Michigan ties, also with the other Harbaugh, and Chad Alexander's coming from the Chargers. So weak draft class for QBs, right? Yeah, fairly weak. Honestly, I might go after Malik Willis. Obviously, depends on the price, but in free agency. Yeah, probably not the year to get a. The Dolphins are in a great spot for QB. Dolphins might be in the tank for whatever it is for Arch Manning next year. Jason Garrett. You guys got to stop throwing out these names. I might crash out of the Dolphins. Take those guys in. I really hope Miami didn't fire Mike without a guaranteed Harbaugh. I think they did do that. I do not think they are guaranteed Harbaugh. They might have a feeling, but I don't think they're guaranteed. Yeah. Jesse Minter, I like what he's doing over there defensively. Willis a free agent? Yeah, Malik Willis is a free agent, and he's probably the only free agent quarterback that you see, and you're like, oh, there's some upside there to get better. And he's obviously a strong overall class for a top. I think the Dolphins are in a pretty good spot to get a quality prospect at 11. Like, because I actually don't think like the prospects from like say pick 15 after the quarterbacks are taken at the top are that different. Like realistically, like I think a lot of the guys from like 15 to pick 3 are going to be similar talent levels. No love for Trey Lance. No, I don't think uh, Trey Lance has the goods I'm looking for at quarterback. I don't think he's good at the QB part of the game, which maybe he develops one day, but it's not who I would be looking for. Is Anthony Weaver a viable head coaching option? For me, I wouldn't go there. I hope he gets a job somewhere else, though. I hope he does. The Dolphins is an attractive job, no QB salary. Cap is in purgatory, not enough talent will take some of the best drafting in ages. Luckily, Greer's won't find the groceries. I agree. It's probably not the most attractive job, but like at least from that perspective. But if you look at it a little more long term, if coaches are like given that guarantee of like a little more long term and they're paid handsomely, which I think Stephen Ross, if there's one thing Ross is very willing to do, is he's willing to pay people. So I think that is that's the sort of attractive part, and who knows. How about Cam Will? Cam Will. I don't know who you're talking about. Cam Will. I don't know. What influence do you think Aikman had on all this? I mean, I think he had some influence. I think some people are like thinking this is like I saw some people talking about Troy Aikman like he was behind all of this. I don't think he has that much power, guys. I think he's just a consultant and he was just reaching out to find good GM candidates. Day 3, Drew Aller. I mean, I guess I'm not a Drew Aller fan, but I mean, in day 3, why not? Oh, you're talking about Cam Miller, the Raiders quarterback. I mean, I think he's another body. I don't know. What would be really funny? I saw a lot of people saying like, "What if Flores gets the Ravens head coaching job and then McDaniel's their OC?" That would be pretty funny. Cam Willer. Yeah, I mean, I just think Miller's more of a. I mean, I think it's just another like late season dart throw at quarterback. See if any of the young guys randomly catch on, but I wouldn't have too much hope in that. But yeah, we should find out. I'll probably go live tomorrow if the Dolphins do hire their GM to talk about it because it does seem like, or it's been reported that they're supposed to hire the guy tomorrow. Uh, I don't really have a preference. I know a lot of people have the preference of like the Packers guy, which I mean I would be all for. It's just at the end of the day, I'm not going to give a preference because I really don't. It's so hard to identify who good GM candidates are, other than just like, oh, he was working with a good team. Like it's hard to know how much impact they actually had with those teams. But yeah, they all seem pretty qualified. Uh, all of them coming from pretty good situations, I guess, other than Champ Kelly, who's the interim GM for Miami. But I actually don't think he's a horrible option either. But he would probably be my least option of the four. But if they do bring in the Packers guy, Malik Willis, I'm down for it. uh, yeah, I mean, yeah, I did see some of the preseason stuff from Miller. He did look fine, but I don't know. If they do bring in the Packers guy and bring in Malik Willis, I can definitely get on board with that. Yeah, if I had to rate it, I guess I would say probably the Packers guy, then the Chargers guy, then the Niners guy, then Kelly. So Sullivan, but like I really, at the end of the day, I don't know if that's even how it should be. Um, but yeah, I think Harbaugh, Minter. I think if the Packers GM is brought in, then I think Halfley, their D coordinator over with Green Bay, who's done a good job this season with them, is an option. Um, and then after that, I don't know. I don't love a lot of the ton of those guys out there. Maybe Shula, maybe Clint Kubiak. If you bring in Kubiak, at least he does run the Shanahan system, so a lot of the guys would be familiar. And he's also one of the top options. It seems like this offseason for a lot of teams. But who knows? Bring in the Chargers guy and Herbert, of course. Hey, I appreciate you guys. Curious if you have a bias or a preference for an offensive-minded head coach or a defensive guy. I think I typically prefer offensive guy just because it's so hard to find good offensive coordinators. Like if a lot of defensive head coaches, I think that's something they struggle with is finding good offensive coordinators. So that's why you usually bring in an offensive head coach, is because those are really where the good play callers are nowadays. But it does, like, if you're bringing in Harbaugh ain't calling plays. Like a lot of these top options, I don't think are going to be play callers this time around. So it looks like this time it might be more defense. And then Harbaugh is nothing. He's a special teams. Hey, at least if they bring in the 49ers GM, it wasn't just to please McDaniel. That means they hired him because they believed he was the best guy, because McDaniel's gone. And I don't think the 49ers guy is a bad option either, at least from what I've seen. Like he maybe ends up being the best drafter of the bunch. That's like the one thing is like we don't know who's going to be the best team builder of the bunch because we've never seen any of these guys in a position of actually team building or like being the main guy with the like who has the final choice of things before. If we hire Harbaugh, do you prefer Weaver or as DC? Well, I don't know. I don't know if, like, is Orr the defensive coordinator for the Ravens this past year? Because I don't think I don't know if the Ravens were super well coached this past year. I have a PO box? No. And McVay's OC? I'd have to look into it. I mean, I wouldn't mind. I definitely don't mind going to the McVay tree. I think McVay's one of the best coaches in the league. Yeah. Well, it looks like we're gonna hire GM first. And I think if they hire Chad Alexander, that raises the chance of Harbaugh and Minter. And I think if they hire Sullivan, that raises the probability of like a Jeff Hatley or Halfley. And I also think it could just be anyone. It doesn't necessarily. I mean, that is how it plays out a lot of times if they do hire a GM from one team. But they do end up bringing a coach from their team a lot of the times, but not always. Yeah. But, last shout out to Mike McDaniel. Probably, there was times there in 2022 and 2023 where it was probably the most exciting Miami Dolphins team to watch in a long time. Obviously, they took some hits. I think McDaniel plays a part in that, but I don't think it was fully on him. I think there were some things that happened that were a little bit out of his control, and it didn't work out. And maybe if he ends up in a better situation, I could see him having still success. So later, Chris. Well, right, I expected, but also didn't expect this. That's a good way of putting it, troll. Like, like I thought it was gonna happen, but also it's like, do they actually have the balls to do it? So it's that type of surprising. Interesting. Does Julian Hill join Eichenberg? Yeah, Julian Hill's another player who probably gets affected by this too. I don't know. I think the one thing that could be, I know people will say like it's not super, um, like the attractive option Miami's head coach because they are head coaching position because they don't have maybe the infrastructure in place. They don't have the quarterback. But if they are given like I think someone like Harbaugh is like, hey, I'm gonna be given time. Ross wrote me a blank check. Like a start over, like a fresh start, having your choice of like options can be, I think, be seen as intriguing to certain people. Being like, hey, we get to start over. We can decide who we end up taking at quarterback, whether it's this year, next year, or whatever. Um, that sort of fresh start thing. But Hill actually improved. Oh, I will say, Julian Hill definitely improved, but he's also someone I could see taking a hit from McDaniel leaving. Bringing Isaiah Likely. Ooh, I do like Likely a lot as a player. Don't know if we have the funds though to pay someone like Isaiah Likely this offseason. Yeah, when do coaches not? I just think people think there's more stability in probably other places, or they can probably find more instant success in other places, which they might be right. But I also don't think any of the head coaching jobs, there's not like one where I'm looking at like, oh my god, that's the spot. How would they even sign Malik Willis? Do they even have the cap space? I mean, they could definitely do it. Would it be the smartest move for the future? I don't know. Like, there's ways to work around your cap space, but it would just affect probably your other spots. The Dolphins can make cap space, and then they can always push money back into next. Like, there's ways of adding void years, things like that. It's just doing that could potentially hurt future ads. So that's the sort of the give and take if they wanted to sign Blake. Maybe if that is sort of the thinking. I think next year could get very rough. Like from where I'm looking at it for right now, then you have a top pick, and 2027 should have a better QB class, but it's still so early. You never know which guys will return, which guys regress. I don't even know if that's something you should count on. Arch Manning's probably the guy people are looking at next year because Arch did improve a lot. Arch really struggled early on this season, but I think he was injured. And then the second half of the year, he looked like if Arch declared, he has a good chance of going number one overall with how he played in the second half of the year. And his name obviously helps. Fire McDaniel, don't fire McConville. Please hire me. I'll try. uh, for Linderbaum, yeah. Well, isn't Linderbaum? I think he's a free agent, right? Oh, but I don't know. Yeah. Well, the Ravens just extended Andrews, so I feel like Likely would want to move on. Any chance to restructure this contract to get released, or is that even possible? I don't think that's typically how restructures work. It'd probably make him even harder to release. And I don't know if he would, just take less money than if he got. But I think the only chance they have of saving that contract a little bit is finding a trade partner, and I would say that's pretty unlikely. Harbaugh bring in Flacco? I mean, I don't really see the point of that, to be honest. I'd just rather roll with if they're gonna roll with a bridge quarterback, I'd rather just roll with a young guy. Like if you're rolling with a bridge guy that you're expecting to suck, like let's at least suck with someone young that might at least have somewhat potential, you know? Yeah. But also, I want to say this changes. I don't think I mentioned this. This changes not only the roster itself, but now how we look at the draft. Because not only do we have a new GM, so like I don't have a because with Chris Greer, I had a good feeling. He was here for so long. I had a good feeling of the player's career life at each position. I knew like his prototypes, you know, so I could have a pretty good feel there. And then with McDaniel here, I knew exactly what his offense was looking for, so it was pretty obvious to find like guys that he would like. But now with a new GM, new coach, like we're in fresh territory. A lot of options become more on the table now that I think so than usual. So that will be very interesting with this draft cycle coming up. Is different types of players being on the table. Free agency as well, but I don't think the Dolphins will be as involved in free agency this upcoming year because of cap, and it's probably the right, especially if they hire the Packers guy. If they hire Sullivan, if you know anything about the Packers, and if you've heard Sullivan talk, like it's the one thing he brings up, he talks about building through the draft, and like the Packers are infamous for never signing free agents. They'll sign some, but it's typically very low end guys. And if they do make like one splash signing, it's like a middle road free agent. So I would not expect much work this offseason, especially 2027, more likely, but yeah. Downs there at 11 with Harbaugh and Alexander becomes way more likely it to be the pick. Now, will Downs be there at the 11? Maybe, maybe not. I think in this draft class, it's probably the best chance a safety has of going before 11, just because of the class itself. A lot of the top guys are non-premium position players, so I think that might make GMs feel more comfortable to take Caleb Downs. But for me, Sullivan is more important than Harbaugh. I think getting the right GM is more important than any head coach this cycle, to be honest. I don't. It doesn't. It could be any of the GMs. I don't know who the right option is. Sullivan seems like the best option on paper, but I could not tell you for sure if he actually is, because we aren't in the room. I have no idea if he's actually that important to the Packers room. It seems like he is, but yeah, I think getting the right GM is the best thing for this team's future. Building up a roster, I don't even like if you can build up the correct roster. Even if your head coach works out, you can always go on to the next one. As long as your roster is good long term, you can be competitive. But would you be okay or happy with Stefanski? I don't think Stefanski's a bad option. So yeah, I think there's worse options than Stefanski. Yeah. Oh yeah, the Eagles is a great example of that. I agree. For the GM being more important, because I don't think what's his face is a very good head coach. I also think that shows how important coordinators are. When you have a head coach, that's why I think it's so important with Harbaugh. That's a very good example. Is the Eagles head coach? He doesn't really do anything schematically for them. He doesn't call plays either side of the ball. Like I know at one point he was calling stuff, but that's why their coordinators, like when they're coordinators, they've changed coordinators like every year. The Eagles offense has taken huge hits. Their defense got better when they brought in Fangio, but like their offensive coordinators have been switching every year, and their offense has been much worse without like a Kellen Moore. So that's why I think like if they do bring in Harbaugh, I really hope it's at least somewhat competent offensive coordinator, or I wouldn't be super excited about Harbaugh. I agree with Reason on Stefanski, which feels like more of a lateral move. I could see that. I think Stefanski and McDaniel, I could see them having similarities. But I also could see Harbaugh being a lateral move if his offensive coordinator. No Super Bowl winning coach has ever won a Super Bowl with a second team. Yeah, that's why I think people who are like they just want to retread like a guy, they don't want a first year head coach. Like I'll never really understand that mindset. Like for me, it's just hire the best guy. If it's a first year guy, first year guy. If it's not, it's not. Sirianni always looks like he has to poop. Not relevant to the conversation, just an observation. Thank you, Mikey, for your observation. I feel like Sirianni has the most punchable faces out of the head coach. But maybe that's just me. LaFleur. Honestly, LaFleur would be more interested. If LaFleur got fired, he'd be the most interesting of the retread head coaches, like going into a second head coaching stint. He'd be way more interesting to me than Harbaugh. And it seems like, the Dolphins are probably going to wait a little bit on head coach because Harbaugh said he's not. It was reported that Harbaugh's not taking interviews until like next week. Seems like they're moving fast on GM, and then the GM will conduct this head coaching search, or will be at least a part of it. Yeah. Harbaugh would be a conservative choice, but the right tone we need. Yeah, I think Harbaugh's like a decent floor head coach to bring up, but I don't think he's like the highest ceiling guy. That's why I said I'd be cool. I'm cool with the Harbaugh sign. I think it's a good one, but it's not one that like super excites. If it's Harbaugh, if it's Harbaugh, and he brings in Todd Monken. I think Monken is probably one of the better offensive coordinator options you'll find. That's the problem with offensive coordinators is most of the good ones are just head coaches at this point. So pumped McDaniel made so many Terry decisions. Terrible. Yeah, I get what you're saying. But don't be surprised if you feel the exact same way with whatever head coach they bring in. Because I actually think most head coaches are just bad decision makers. I don't understand it. That's why, like, I don't want Mike McCarthy here. I don't think I could handle Mike McCarthy's clock. Clock management might be my biggest pet peeve when it comes to NFL head coaches. Like, it's the one thing I think I could do better than a lot of head coaches. Like, obviously, most head coaches are going to do way better than me in every aspect of being a head coach. Like, football wise and, being a leader. But I'm watching clock management and I'm just like, you guys not understand when to take a timeout? Oh, man. There's some rough clock management out there. Yeah, no to Mike McCarthy. No to Gruden. Yeah. Yeah, Dante Kellinelli, he just tweeted out a list he'd look at. He put John Harbaugh, Kevin Stefanski, Jesse Minter, Jeff Hafley, and Chris Shula. Like, those are 5 that I would be interested in, especially in this head coaching cycle. Like, there's not many others, but those would be someone I'd be interested in of guys that are available, right? Or potentially available. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think we need Ryder as a special advisor to the team. Dude, make me special advisor and just give me one draft pick. Just give me like a celebrity shot in beer pong. Give me that as the GM. Just give me one pick. I'll make the most of it. Imagine you make your one pick and it's just like the worst player ever. That'd be rough. But I would just go for one of my guys. Harbaugh, Tomlin, or LaFleur. I mean, Tomlin and LaFleur aren't available, but I mean they could be, I guess. I'm not super. I don't think there's any college coaches I'm super interested in. One draft pick. To be fair, my guys were like in the last. My guys in the last class were like Jordan Phillips, 5th round, Malik Washington in the 6th. Before that, I could give me like a 5th or 6th. I could get it right. Like if it was last year, I would have gotten like Marcus and Bo, or who else was available in the 5th. I would have taken like Jackson Haas or something like that, who's been a good tight end for the Bills. I mean, if I did only have one, I would take someone that I was fairly confident would just be like good at their job, like a Jordan Phillips, like someone would be like, oh yeah, he's going to be a good run defending nose. So just so I was right. Or like Jackson Haas, I'm like, oh, I at least know he's going to be a good run blocking tight end. Can't get that wrong. Can you see Harbaugh even choosing Miami? I could see it. I think money talks, and I feel like the thing is, if you think about it from Harbaugh's perspective, it might not be as attractive as some other spots that maybe have a QB, but he also would be like, he might know like, hey, Ross loves him, is going to pay him a lot of money, and he's going to give him time. Like he might think like, okay, I'm good. What position are you best at scouting in your opinion? Tight end. Dude, I don't think it was always tight end, but it might be tight end. I feel like I've been pretty like this last class. Like I remember I argued with a lot of people saying like I'm like, dude, this last tight end class, it's the best it's been in a long time. I think that's still true because I remember some people thought like the Laporta class was better. I don't think it is, but tight end's up there for sure. I've always said corner and receiver and safety because that's what I played, so I have a feel for that. I feel like O line is probably my weakest. I feel like it's the hardest to get right. Running back, I'm pretty good at running back. I just don't scout running backs a lot anymore because I don't feel like it's ever a huge need for Miami. But I do feel pretty good about running back. Pretty good about linebacker, but probably would be more middle of the pack. Yeah, I think O line's the one where like it's tough. Yeah, O line is well, yeah, it's either if it's not your strongest, it's your weakest. That's what I'll say. Because some people are like just O line guys, so they'll say it's your strongest. But I feel like if you don't say O line's your strongest, you're probably gonna say it's your weakest or like bottom three. Um, it's just always been that way. I mean, I've definitely hit on O lineman, but I feel like it's where I've had the. I'm like, man, how did this guy end up being so bad, or how did this guy end up being so good? I just didn't see that. Yeah, actually, it's weird because I don't think D line is that hard. Like D line and edge, but O line is a lot harder. Hmm. Oh yeah, kick yeah, special teams. I have no idea. I have no idea. I don't watch kicker or punter tape. I can't tell you who's going to be good. Kicker makes no sense to me because some guys will be like insane at the college level, like best kickers ever, and then they go to the NFL and bust right away. And then some guys will have like a pretty bad kicking percentage in college and then go to the NFL and be like amazing. And then you'll take a soccer player from Ireland and they'll be like the best kicker in the league. It's like, uh, any chance Jonah will be decent in another system? Maybe. I mean, he could find maybe that will be the saving grace. And honestly, I might move him to the right side because I just didn't see enough improvement on the left side to justify keeping him there anymore. I think in the offseason, you're like, hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to stick on the left or do you want to go to the right? Because whatever you pick, that's where you're going, and hopefully you can turn around. Who was the best draft pick this past season? Um, I don't know. I'm trying to think who's a later round pick or middle to late that's playing high level football for their teams. Uh, I'm sure I can find me 2025 NFL. Like you're talking for like the whole league, right? Let's scroll through. I'm going later because it's probably not at the top. Because let's go third rounder later. No, no, no. Jamari Caldwell in the third, maybe. I know he's played pretty well for the Chargers. Xavier Watts for the Falcons. That's in the third. There's probably someone later though. I'm just trying to find guys that I know are playing well that are somewhat later. Deion Walker for the Bills. I know he's had a pretty good season. I'm trying to find. There's got to be someone who's like just absolute stud. How do you like that James Pierce trade in retrospect? I think it's obviously worked out pretty well for the Falcons. They made the right picks, but I do think it's still a good trade for the Rams. like value wise, I still think it makes sense for the Rams, but the Falcons did a good job, obviously, with their picks. Nope, nope, nope. Yep, I loved Xavier Watts, Jackson Haas for the Bills in the fifth. Probably not him either, but he's played pretty well for them. I don't know. Yeah, I think Downs is probably my favorite option at 11 right now. There's a lot of options though. I actually do like a lot of options in this draft. He's probably my favorite. Jordan Phillips, yeah. Jordan Phillips is not a bad shot either. Like played a lot of snaps and was very consistent. I just feel like there's gotta be a player that's been like an absolute stud that I'm just missing out on. That's later round. Maybe it's just one of the first or second round picks. Luther Burden. I don't think Burden's played pretty well, but I don't think it's him. It took him a little bit to get going too. McDaniel loyalists who would want to follow him to his new team. I mean, I don't know if they're loyalists in terms of like they might be loyalists just be like, hey, this is where I would find the most success and make a lot of money, and that'd be guys like I've mentioned earlier, like a Brewer. Um, hmm, let's see, an H hand. Is 11 too high to take the tight end from Oregon? I do like Sadiq, but the more I've watched, I do think Sadiq is more of like a late first, early second round tight end. So I do think 11 is a little bit too high. Tesla should have picked him up. Well, Tesla, the Lions traded like 3 third-round picks to get Tesla. And I don't think he was worth it. He does catch a lot of touchdowns, but that's pretty much he hasn't caught a lot of other passes. Um Brewer, yeah. It'd probably be the best thing. Like I think Ewers is a McDaniel guy. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of McDaniel praise on the timeline. And I do think he did a better job than maybe most Dolphins fans give him credit for, but it was just time to move on. And some of his weaknesses just never improved. Best draft pick this past season. I would say in terms of value, I think it's Phillips. This is a draft for centers, sort of. I have not watched centers yet because I usually don't watch a lot of positions where I'm like, oh, we already have a stud there, and Brewer was that. But I guess I probably would have to watch some centers with potentially, a different offensive coordinator. Best DB in the draft is Caleb Downs, safety. Best corner is either Mansour Delane from LSU or Jamad McCoy from Tennessee. But McCoy didn't play this past year because of an injury. Right? He did it better. Yeah, he did it. Yeah. I mean, I also think it depends on what your opinion was of Tua and how you think how successful he was. But that's something I guess we can't know for sure who deserves the most credit for everything, who deserves the most criticism for certain things. Now Reason can drop his dirty here to McDaniel during training camp this year. What went wrong in 2023 season? Injuries. I mean, that was the season too we played the Chiefs in like the negative 30-degree game, right? Yeah, I think that was like we were decimated. We were starting edge. We had like 3 edge players out there playing in that game that weren't on the team a week prior. Like, yeah. They were decimated, bro. That was tough. Yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna be rooting for Mike. I'll be honest. Wherever he goes, I'm rooting for him. I think he was one of the more likable coaches Miami had. But people won't like this, but I think Miami goes after Cliff Kingsbury as head coach. I'd be down to bring him as OC, depending on who. I guess you would bring in a quarterback, but for head coach, I don't think he'd be an option. I mean, he was just fired as an offensive coordinator. I have no idea what's going on with James Daniels. Yeah, yeah. Fangio has said it. Like, I think Fangio definitely keeps it real. He's not someone to lie to the media. He said like, yeah, we fell apart because of injuries. Like, that's pretty much what 2023 came down to. The Dolphins have had some pretty bad injury years. 2023 was as worst it gets, and I think you know what it was. It was the year Tua stayed fully healthy. There must have been some juju they gave to Tua to like make him stay healthy, and everyone else it like took away their energy to stay healthy. I don't know. QB then trade Tua for Kyler. I'm not a huge Kyler fan, but I guess there's worse options. I think McDaniel can land in a lot of places. I think as an offensive coordinator, I think Washington makes a ton of sense because he has the Quinn. Like they just fired Kingsbury. He has the Quinn connection there, and apparently they want to be like more run heavy. And I think McDaniel has the run scheme for them to do that. And I think him and Jaden Daniels would be a pretty interesting mix. That's if he goes offensive coordinator, head coach. I mean, who knows? He could go to a lot of different spots. Why do we not use Jalen Waddle? I mean, I think we were using Jalen Waddle, and then we realized we couldn't be a pass heavy team anymore, and became a run heavy team, and then Waddle's usage just went down. I think that's just what it came down to. The Dolphins just changed their philosophy. Yeah, yeah, I do think that is the one thing that kind of sucked about the playoff games we played in. They were not great situations. One was negative 30 degrees versus the Super Bowl winning Chiefs, and then the other one you were playing with Skylar Thompson at quarterback. Unfortunate for sure. Mike coached at Washington with RG3, right? Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. I think so. I'm not against Todd Monken. I would have to go and like watch some film, but I think I could get behind both of them. But I think Monken would make more sense with Harbaugh just because they have that connection. And I think both would make if you wanted to bring in a guy like Malik Willis, both would make sense. Also, Waddle didn't have chemistry. Yeah, when you were started playing, him and Waddle definitely did not have chemistry. And when Tua was playing, we became like super run heavy towards the end of the season. So like we just weren't throwing the ball as much. What wide receiver do you think we should draft? Um. Okay, so I'll give you. It depends on the round, but there's a few guys I like. Um, if they were gonna go like day two receiver, like third round, guys like Jeremy Bernard, Elijah Surratt, guys who are like kind of, a little more physical to their game, like pretty like well-rounded, solid guys. Not gonna blow you away with their explosiveness, but I think guys that can mesh pretty well with like a Waddle. If they were going to go like first round, I think guys like Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson are on the table. Makai Lemon is actually my favorite receiver in the draft, like just as a player personally, but I don't think he's what Miami's looking for. But I do think Makai Lemon's going to be a very good player. He's my favorite to watch. Casey Concepcion's another guy that's kind of like that. I don't know if Miami will be looking at his type of receiver, but I'm a huge fan of Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M. Denzel Boston. Like if Denzel Boston fell to the second round, I'd be looking at him for sure. And like whatever pick we have, it's like 43 or something. Bigger body X type receiver from Washington. He's like 6'4", 220 ish. I love the idea of Willis, but can the Finns even afford to get him? Uh, like I said, Alex, I think they can afford to get him if they really wanted to, but it would probably hurt other types of players you could add either that year or in future years. But I also don't know what his um I don't know what his price is gonna be. Chris Bell. I think Bell got injured though, right? Didn't he have an injury? Louisville receiver. Any chance we keep Harbaugh as defensive coordinator of Harbaugh or Weaver as defensive coordinator of Harbaugh comes here? Yeah, I think for sure. I think that's Weaver's best chance to stay as defensive coordinator if Harbaugh comes. Can we trade or cut Tyreek Hill? Yes. I think they will definitely move on from Tyreek. Whether it's trade or cut. Most likely cut, I would have to guess, coming off the injury. Um, Gruden loves Ewers. Gruden likes all the QBs he interviews. That is very true. That's why I don't put too much stock into that because every QB he brings in there, he's shouting out. And I just think Ewers is a very specific scheme fit to McDaniel and the Shanahan scheme. I think he might be the one taking the biggest L from this McDaniel firing. Because I think if McDaniel stayed, he had a chance to see playing time. I'm sick and tired of drafting these small, quick receivers and need big receivers. Yeah. I mean, to me, I just like drafting good players. And to me, it's not necessarily about being big or small. Because sometimes there's big receivers that don't play big, and sometimes there's small receivers that play big. Like Mekhi Lemon plays pretty big. Like Mekhi Lemon's one of the best contested catchers in the class. It's just I do think the Dolphins do need some size at receiver. Um, and I don't think that means like you can't draft small receivers, but like if you're gonna bring in small receivers, you do need at least one like bigger kind of X guy, or at least someone that can play with some physicality. You just don't need all exact same types. And Mekhi Lemon is not a Waddle clone. Mekhi Lemon is like an Amon-Ra St. Brown type, or of that type of nature, where he's more of like because Waddle's got a lot of speed to his game, where Lemon's more like very controlled route runner, set you up type, makes all the catches. Right, this is why I disagree with you. I think Quinn could work with a Todd Monken or a Cliff Kingsbury. I'm sure he could work with him, but I think that's pretty much. I just don't see how hasn't played in those types of systems, and those types of systems I think would really show out his weaknesses a lot more. Steve Smith is my favorite type of receiver. Yeah, I love there a lot of small receivers end up being my favorite types of guys in the draft. They just don't typically play small. Like a guy like there's like guys in this class like Zachariah Branch, the Georgia receiver. I'm not going to be super high on him because I think he is a gadget receiver that is more of a special teams guy. But they're small receivers that can do and run the full route tree. Like Waddle and Tyreek are smaller receivers, but they can go and run a full route tree and make plays down the field. They're not gadget type of guys. Like you mentioned, Weiss is a bigger receiver. Yes, Weiss is a bigger receiver, but he doesn't play like that. He is more of a detailed route running type of receiver that's not super athletic, but also doesn't play with a ton of physicality in his game. Like if you're going to add a bigger receiver, I want them to be physical. Have you watched film on Keldrick Falk? Yes, he would be one of the picks that I could see Miami making at 11 that I would not be a fan of at all. I just feel like edges like that, the ones that are like the bigger edges that aren't super bursty and bendy, and not super productive, I just feel like those guys never play up to their draft stock or at the pro level. Sleeper QB in the draft. Um, I guess it depends on who declares, but there's honestly not many sleepers. A lot of the guys I liked are returning. um, I guess like a Sawyer Robertson, but I'm not even a huge fan of him from Baylor. But he'll probably be one of the better mid-round options you can make. Uh, let's see. I guess maybe a Cole Payton from North Dakota State. He's got some upside. No, I want Jordan Tyson. We need a wide receiver that can create space. Yeah, Tyson's got really good film, but I also think Tyson is Tyson has some injury concerns apparently that not sure how I'm looking at a wide receiver with injury concerns. Tyson I can get behind because he's like a guy that's just your typical well-rounded receiver. Between the two tackles at Utah, based on their tape, who do you think more likely sticks to tackle and who you move into center, not just guard? I think they're both tackles, personally. I guess Fano would be more likely to move inside, but I think they're both tackles. We hired GM first, right? So he can pick his coach. Yeah, apparently it's reported that we are supposed to make our decision on GM tomorrow. So I think whoever the GM is should point us in the direction of what coach they're looking for. It should at least narrow it down, I think. Do we draft right tackle? I think it's very likely we could draft right tackle. It wouldn't surprise me if right tackle was their first round pick. Obviously, it's so far away. I don't know for sure, but I think it's definitely in the realm of possibility. Especially with where they're picking, I could see Maui Noah and Spencer Fano being. Would you be surprised if a guy like Bryce Lance gets drafted in the first 3 rounds or even in the late? I haven't really watched Bryce Lance, but I've seen clips, but I haven't watched his film yet, so I'm not sure. If it's either 49ers guy, we're definitely getting Harb. I think Harb is more likely if Chad Alexander, the Chargers guy. Apparently only one 49ers guy is left in the running, and that's Josh Williams. He's the only one that went to the second round. What about Austin Jackson? I think they're going to move on from him from like just a contract perspective and injury perspective. And also, I think Austin Jackson is someone that will take a hit from McDaniel leaving. I think him not being in that scheme would hurt him, or like it would definitely hurt his play. Can you say the list? Two of the Finns have interviewed for GM whenever they have any. Yeah, so there's a list out there, but I think there's only 4 that matters because apparently these are the 4 that moved to the second round of interviews. Let me find it. I have it right. Yeah, pretty close. Yeah. So the 4 that moved into the second phase, this was reported by Tom Pelissero yesterday. The 4 GMs that are going to do in-person interviews this week are, and I think they're happening today, at least some of them are. Chargers, Chad Alexander. Chad Alexander is the guy who was previously with the Ravens. He has the Harbaugh connections. He's in Los Angeles with the other Harbaugh brother. I think if he was hired, I would say Harbaugh and Jesse Minter would be the 2 options that are very likely. Then you have the Packers guy, John Eric Sullivan. I think if he's hired, who I think he's a lot of people's favorite, that would probably open up the option for like Jeff Hafley, their defensive coordinator. And honestly, I could see a lot of other options. And then you got 49ers, Josh Williams. And then they're also doing Champ Kelly, the Dolphins interim GM from this past year. Do you think Ty Simpson coming out this year is a mistake? I do think he needs more seasoning, I agree, but this is probably his best chance of still getting drafted high, so it's probably the right choice for him. But yeah. I am about to end stream, so let me see what else you guys say. Trade down. I mean, I'm always down to trade down, but who knows if anyone wants to trade up. Yeah, I could get behind the Arizona State right tackle. But yeah. Okay. That's where I'm going to end it. Thank you guys for watching. Do you see us pursuing Malik Willis? I think depending on who the GM and head coach is, but I do think it's a very real possibility. What do you think about Ross as an owner? I don't really have thoughts on Ross as an owner. I mean, he's willing to spend money. I guess that's positive, but I don't know. It's hard to say. Like it's not like having thoughts on him really changes anything anyways. He's not going to be someone that gets fired. But yeah, gotta head out of here. Who's the next player you do film on? I'm going to have an Emmanuel McNeil Warren video public tomorrow. So it's been members only for a while, but he's the safety from Toledo. He would be my second round safety to go after. But I have bunch of players ready to go. I have to just record some of them. But yeah.